Hey everyone, Ryan here at Novelist Inc., NINC, the channel where we talk about the craft and business of writing professionally. So, you know the questions that some interviewers always ask a writer? Yeah, those questions. Things like, does your editor tell you what to write? Do you research your sex scenes personally? How much do you earn? Well, don't worry, we've got you covered. The good news is you don't need an expensive PR firm to help you control your message when you're being interviewed. In this NINC presentation, best-selling author and former journalism teacher Michele Dunaway walks us through the home base method, a simple system that helps you build talking points, handle tough questions, and stay on brand in every interview. So, let's go.
While Novelists Inc., NINC, strives to provide accurate and helpful information, NINC does not assume any liability for or endorse any opinions, advice, instructions, products, errors, or omissions in the following video. Viewers are solely responsible for how they interpret and apply any NINC content.
Hi everyone, I'm Michele Dunaway and welcome to Be Your Own Media Person. Over the next half hour or so, I'm going to show you how to take control of any interview, pitch, or even a tough social media moment without hiring an expensive publicist to do it for you. By the end of this presentation, you'll have some of the tools the pros use every day, and you'll know exactly how to build your own message map. And believe me, a message map is very critical to your success. So let's talk just a little about me and why I'm giving this presentation so that you know where I'm coming from. Well, I'm Michele Dunaway, and I write strong, sexy heroes and heroines for savvy readers who want contemporary small-town escapes where satisfaction and happily ever afters are guaranteed. I've written over 35 plus contemporary romance novels, with the second book of my Legacy Canyon series, Inheriting Her Rodeo Cowboy, releasing in August of 2026. In addition to writing, I hold a Master of Arts in Media Communications, and I've taught English and journalism for over 25 years. And many of my students have gone on to be successful videographers, photographers, and news media professionals, along with a host of other careers. So here are a bunch of my current and upcoming releases. If small town contemporary romance with a Texas setting is something you're into, where there's real emotional stakes, I would love for you to check them out. I'm also going to show you the header of my Facebook profile page, which is containing most of my backlist, because I want you to see my tagline, which is hometown sweet with a hint of spice. That'll be important later. So let's get started and get into it. I want you to think about something. How many times have you had to talk to someone and you couldn't quite get your point across? These could even include a customer service person or a doctor or even a business colleague. Let's go beyond our daily life and get into our writing world. How many of you have been interviewed? Did you like it? Did you know what you were going to say beforehand? And I'm not necessarily even talking about job interviews, but this also will work for job interviews. But this idea of when we get interviewed, do we have an idea what we're going to say, or is it kind of walking in blind when we don't get the questions in advance? So here's the real question though. If you've done an interview, did the reporter, when they gave you a story, did they get it right? Were you happy with what they wrote or what they presented out online? If you were dealing with someone, did you get what you wanted out of the interchange and the interaction? Or if on social media, did what you post get misconstrued, or did it get tons of likes and everyone loved it and you were like, yay? Because that, of course, is what we want. So what if I tell you there's a way to mostly get it right? And I show you this slide simply because you're not going to always have total control, and they might misquote you and they might not get exactly the facts correct, but you can get a beautiful piece like this, which started for me 20 years ago. Author Michele Dunaway was shelving books at the Kirkwood Library for $2 an hour. Now the library has all 7 of her books on hand. And so that's a great lead, and people are going to be curious because here's a hometown girl made good. And then 20 years later, even after that, there was more getting it right because they covered me again when I published my 25th book. So I learned the system that I'm going to share with you from a man named Trip Frolickstein, who ran Media Masters in St. Louis for more than 30 years. Trip has since passed away, but the strategies he taught me have stuck with every single interview I've ever given and every podcast I've ever done. It's even involving every post that I put out. Today, I'm going to share those tips and tricks with you, along with some thoughts from others who have used this system, either worked with him or come up with their own, and have helped others get their point across when dealing with the noise of what we refer to as media. So our objectives today are as follows. Today, I'm going to show you how to create your own talking points, just like the pros use. You'll learn how to do the following: how to use home-based messaging to get your point across in any situation, how to develop your message map, including your 3 types of points. What are those? You'll find out. And how to understand why to avoid no comment and how to always stay on message, because that is key to obtaining your objective, which most likely will tie to your goal, which is probably to sell more books. So let's get started with what you already know. Let me reassure you, first of all, you already know most about what you need. You can write your own book blurb. You already know your author brand. And if you aren't that far in your author career because you're just starting out, you at least know the genre in which you're writing. And you probably already know how to give the audience what they want, which is quite simple. When they read your books, they want to have a great read that they talk about with their friends. So we're going to take those instincts that you already know and sharpen them into tools that you can use on your command. And to do this, we're going to use something called the home base method. The foundation for everything that we do today comes down to this idea of the home base method. And it's a way for the person being interviewed or the person communicating a message, that's you, to take control of that message. It's how to make sure the right message gets through all the noise that's out there. So, why home base? While you have no control over who is interviewing you, you do control what message you put out in that interview or on your social media. Knowing your home base allows you to control your messaging and to get your point across. No matter where the conversation goes, it allows you to be the one in control, not the person that you're speaking with, either doing an interview or interacting with on social media. That controlling the message is key. Now, we need to talk about the idea that audiences can't hold on to too many messages at one time because they won't remember them and they won't do what you want. Think about right now social media and just how fast you click on the various posts that you might see. You start a reel and about 3 seconds in, you're already on to the next one. That's because attention spans are much shorter. So audiences are not going to necessarily remember a lot of messages or do what you want without you really telling them what it is you want them to do. So Tripp puts it this way: having a single message enables the audience to see why you do what you do, to help them. That is your goal, to help the audience understand the point that you are trying to communicate to them. If you try to cram in way too many things, they're not going to get it. So you have one thing, and that's your job, is to find that one thing, and that one thing is going to be your message. So we have this 30-second conundrum where your main message needs to be a simple, easy to understand phrase that can be used multiple times throughout your interview. This comes from Chris Cuban, who also adds, remember, you have a limited amount of time to get a good soundbite. You might be interviewed for 30 minutes, but your final soundbite may only be 30 seconds long. This happened to me back in 1989 at the New Music Seminar. One of my claims to fame is that I was on MTV's The Week in Rock, and I was there for New Music Seminar, and they came along, and I was standing in the St. Louis booth promoting St. Louis artists, and they asked me tons of questions about St. Louis music. And then they asked me another question. What's the worst thing about all this? And I said, well, the worst thing is it's an information overload. That is my soundbite. It's an information overload. The worst thing is it's an information overload. It became about me saying that and none of the artists about St. Louis. So know that what you say might be cut down to this small little soundbite. So you want to have that piece that the reporter takes away. So we need to give them the why and the what. A home-based message is what the person takes away, a brief phrase or something you want the person to remember. Your home-based message should be what Frolickstein called your single most important communication objective, as your home-based message answers the question, what's in it for me? So why does that matter? Well, let's think about this for a second. If my home base or main point is entertaining St. Louis readers with historical stories, and you ask me what I do and I say, I write good books, you could come back and look at me and say, so what? This is an example of a non-working message. And I used to talk to my journalism students about this all the time. I said, it's your job to get that information out of the person you're interviewing. The why should I care? The so what? Why am I doing this story? So what? Because stories are about people. They are not about events or things. Stories are about people. The angle of your story comes from that so what. All right? You need to tell them so what and that why is it important. So we are telling the reader why they should care. You never want to say someone to say, so what? And you don't want to be like everybody else. You don't want to, why do I care if you write books? I mean, I write books. Why do I care if you write books? What's in it for me? So that becomes very important to your audience, the ones that are going to be viewing your interview or reading about you in the paper or whatever it is that you've done, listening to the podcast. So if I say something along the lines, I write books about St. Louis founders that will make you laugh even on a bad day, that is much more specific. I have given you the what's in it for me. What's in it for you? Laughter, good times, a little piece of home, especially if you live in St. Louis. So we have to tell the reader why they care. We have to, why they should care. We have to be memorable. So for authors, we need to think about this idea of our home base actually relating to our brand. So Beth Barani, a creativity coach who works with writers, will tell you that your author brand is who you are and what you stand for. It's an opportunity to connect with readers. And here's the key though, you have to tell them over and over. Repetition is not a flaw in this system. It's the whole point. Note, hometown sweet with a hint of spice. Remember from my Facebook cover? That describes my books, not me or what I do. Hometown sweet with a hint of spice doesn't really give you the so what. It's a tagline. It's a slogan, sort of like Nike's just do it or Mountain Dew's feel the dew. So we have to tell them over and over our key message. Home base is an opportunity to connect to the reader what you are about. They meet you through this platform and they know instantly who you are and what you stand for. So it is your key message. Barani described it as a genre, an audience, the audience's desired result, and your intended action. You stand on this. It's who you are. It's your why. So, how does home base fit in? Let's start by putting this into a visual, this graphic organizer. Here's a simple, what we call a message map. At center is home base, your core message, and everything you build from here will branch off of it. No matter how complicated your map gets, every branch leads back to that center. So again, I keep saying home base is your key message. It is the core and center of what you do. It's the why of why the reader should pick you. So for our first example, I write books about St. Louis founders that will make you laugh even on a bad day. This single sentence tells you the genre, the audience, and the promise all at once. You're going to laugh, even on a bad day. So let's give you another example, a romance example, since I'm a romance writer. I write strong, sexy heroes and heroines for savvy adult readers who want contemporary small-town escapes where satisfaction and romantic happily ever afters are guaranteed. The same 4 pieces: the genre, the audience, the result, and the promise. You are going to get a romantic happily ever after. So how does this come into play? Well, here's the thing about having your home base nailed down. When a reporter flips it into the third person, it works. For over 25 years, Michele Dunaway has written strong, sexy heroes and heroines for savvy adult readers who want contemporary small-town escapes where satisfaction and romantic happily ever afters are guaranteed. That's not a coincidence here. If your home base is built well, it will translate clearly into whatever the reporter needs. You did that work for them, and you got to keep your message intact in the process. So once we have this home base, this idea of, our home base, we have to expand that out. So we do this using positive points. Positive points are basically your primary message that supports your home base and shore up your position. They strengthen that why. So as Tripp's rule of thumb, and what he says here is to use no more than 3 positive points, although you can have many more to support your home base. But the general idea is 3 because 3 is about all that everyone is going to be remembering. So positive points support your home base. Looking back at this graphic organizer, we see that it's in the center. We would have my crafting savvy and sexy novels. And so then I would have my positive points around those, such as I write satisfying happily ever afters. I have series continuity. I maintain mid-heat level in my love scenes. My characters are strong, self-aware people. Each of these supports my home base of that idea of crafting savvy and sexy romantic novels. All right, I give the reader something that they can latch onto and give the reporter something that they can write about. So we can talk now about what does it mean to be a happily ever after, or my series continuity, or if somebody says, well, what does a 3 mid-heat level mean? And I can explain that to the reporter, or what I mean by strong, self-aware people. And I could do that within the context of my book. But we go beyond positive points. And we have both proof positive and distinguishing points. So the larger graphic organizer looks something like this. And you'll still see home base in the center. And then you will see your proof positive points and distinguished positive points branching out from those as well. So let's talk about proof positive points. These are your specific measurable examples. Think facts, concrete details. For example, if I said for satisfying happily ever afters, my proof positive points could be something like this. I've had 150 5-star reviews for my first book. I've sold 1.7 million copies globally. My book hit #1 on Amazon. Now, I will be honest, in real life, only one of those 3 is true. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit later about fibbing and lying. But the point is that I wanted to give you some specific concrete examples of what you can come up with, because proof positive statements back up and support your positive points and your home base. So they take your claim from trust me to here's the evidence. Reporters love and can build a story around these concrete numbers. So distinguishing points, which are the other type of points, because not all of your positive points need to be proof positive. Instead, you can use distinguishing points, which explain how you are different and of course better from everyone else out there. So they require introspection to really figure out what makes you unique. All right? So here's an example that works in the real world. Going back to those Webster Kirkwood Times articles that I screenshotted and showed you earlier. If I'm pitching my local paper, my distinguishing point is that I am local. All right? That matters to them. Personally, I've always pitched that I was a teacher by day and a romance writer by night, because that's what sets me apart from the crowd. Your distinguishing point might be why your zombies are better than everyone else's. You might be talking about why your vampires glitter. Whatever makes you you. If you wrote all of your novels or your first ones while you were a long haul trucker, that is something to share. So I'll be honest with you. Again, this is going to take some thought, and it's sometimes the hardest part of the whole exercise. But it's the reason why you matter. So, finding these points. These positive and distinguishing points are often difficult to find. You have to dig deep. So, Frolickstein gives some hints on how to do this. He says, remember the following when searching for positives. What is routine to you is not routine to me. In other words, something you do regularly may not be worth or seem worth mentioning to customers or to your audience, but in fact, it might be fascinating to others and worth mentioning. So I want you to think about this when you're doing your distinguishing points. Don't dismiss the ordinary parts of your process. They might be the most interesting thing about you. So a little bit of advice to help you as well is to think like an outsider. Frolickstein says this is one of the best ways to refine your points. Most professional communicators will tell you the audience wants to know what's in it for me, but Frolickstein wrote that your positive points should also pass again that who cares test. Ask, why will a reader be interested in this? What is something that's different about you? I used to tell my students, there is a valedictorian at every school. There is a yearbook editor at every school. There is a kid who took every AP class that he could take at your school. And they're all at all the other schools as well. So what makes them different? That's why a reader cares. Find that piece. So I like to think like a reporter when I'm doing this. All right. And I would teach this to my journalism students. All right. Reporters know that there are like 5 elements to a news story. Timeliness, which is it happening now? Significance, how many people does it affect? Proximity, is the story happening nearby? Prominence, is it happening to someone well known in our society? This is one reason why you see news covering celebrities, because they are well known. And human interest, is there an emotional appeal? This is why people click on reels, is because they look and they say, this looks interesting, or oh, cute puppy, cute kitten. And you often come into that idea of human interest. So the more you can tag, the better. So what distinguished me for the Webster Kirkwood Times was timeliness. The release date coincided with the article. Significance, anyone could buy it, I'm a local author. Proximity, the subject of the story lives in the distribution area. Prominence, the subject of the story has sold 1.7 million. That's the true fact. Human interest, subject of the story has done what others dream of doing, which is publishing more novels than just your first one. So, on message maps and how to build them, they will end up looking just a little bit like this. You will notice that we have our home base, we have our positive point, and branching off that are our proof positive and our distinguishing points. Everything connects. Everything points to home. You can easily draw one of these on your computer or in a notebook, but what goes inside the boxes must come from you. Now, if this is a little overwhelming, we can come into this model by Dr. Vincent Covello, which is basically called the Triple T model. And it's easy to remember. You tell people what you're going to tell them, you tell them more, then you tell them again what you told them. That's it. 3 key messages, 3 supporting facts for each, and you have a home base on the way in and a home base on the way out. If the hub and spoke model seems a little bit overwhelming, this is a very simple chart that you can create. So a sample map can look a little bit like this. So this was the University of Missouri's extension map, and you can see that their home base is to improve people's lives, and you will see their positive points coming off, like education to help people help themselves, meets high priority needs, and then it just keeps branching. But this is a message map that is used or was used professionally. So here we are. Someone's going to talk to me. Now what? So this is why you have message maps. Here's an insider tip that will help you land some quotes. Message maps help you tighten your pitch, and tight pitches get picked up. Chris Cuban points out that news editors are often looking for very specific angles. He calls them the C's: catastrophe, chaos, conflict, confusion, competition, contradiction, corruption, crime, crisis, and color. And color usually means human interest. And don't forget the S's: secrets, sensationalism, and sex. These are often what drive news coverage. If you can ethically and authentically connect your story to any one of those angles, it helps you get picked up. Most of the time, you're going to be a human interest or a color feature. So remember, when you get picked up, it's important that you can control your message. Here's the reality of media today. Newsrooms and publications have been gutted. Reporters are overworked, and they often need you to do half their job for them. That sounds like bad news, but it's actually good news, because it means the author who walks in with a clear message map is the author who gets quoted accurately. Your map keeps you on brand. It keeps you focused. And it works for social media too. The next time you're deciding whether to respond to something, you can respond from your home base position instead of reacting emotionally and from the gut. And we'll talk about social media a little bit later. So, when you are talking, it is important to be honest and to tell the truth. So, Janice Murray, who runs Murray Prep, says it best: use visual examples and positive points to prove what you say is true. If we can see it, we can believe it. So, like I said, only one of those three was correct, and it is that I've sold over 1.7 hard copy millions of my books globally. But what I want you to think about is, what are some stats that you can use to prove what your home base and your positive points are. So be authentic in your emotions. Chris Cuban says, what you say is as important as how you say it. Your energy, enthusiasm, and excitement and entertainment factors will instill a strong connection with your audience. Janice Murray says, emotion without substance is hollow. Emotion with reason can be unbeatable. So when you're being interviewed, you want to be likable and friendly and, personable, but you want to be authentic as to who you are. And again, know your home base and your positive points. You will use these throughout your interview. Janice Murray's trick is to start your answers with a frame such as, here's why, here's how, or for example, and then follow with a fact. You need to also be prepared. Make sure that you've done that. As I love the way Janice Murray puts this. She says, home base is your safe place to go when stumped. So keeping it short makes it quickly accessible by memory when needed and nervous. Because let's be honest, a lot of people are nervous when they are being interviewed. And Dr. Covello adds, take advantage of opportunities to re-emphasize or bridge to key messages. You should view every question as a chance to go back to your home base and repeat your core message. So moving on, let's talk a little bit about this idea of no comment, because we see it all the time when you've got a gaggle of reporters outside of a courthouse or something, and the person is coming out after either being convicted or being acquitted, and the reporters are shouting questions, or you see this in a press conference and they go, no comment, no comment, no comment. So unless you are rushing out of that courthouse or an event, in interview situations where you're one-on-one, or if you're sitting on a panel or something, even in a presentation, like if you're doing an author panel, the words no comment often have really negative connotations. It sounds like you're hiding something. even if you're not. And instead, answer the question directly, even if it means a yes or a no, and then bridge back to your home base, or answer briefly and move on, but don't say no comment. And if you're running out somewhere, just be silent. All right. Sometimes silent can be golden. Again, no comment oftentimes means you have a comment, but you're not telling them right then. So again, there's a way to have a trick to rephrase when someone gives you a comment that you don't want to answer. So let's give you a semi-real scenario. You're in an interview for your latest book and it's going really well. The reporter asks, how do you feel about book banning and the legislature's recent stand on removing these books from school? And you're sort of like, uh-oh. I mean, we want to answer this question. Most of us have strong opinions on book banning as authors, all right? But we are wondering, but is this a good thing to do? Because here's the question. Is answering this question going to help you sell books? And we need to think about this for a minute. And here's why. You have two choices here. You can answer, and now the interview risks becoming about book banning and your position on it. If that's a topic that you're passionate about and you want to take a stand on it publicly, that might be exactly what you want. And you might want to answer that question, and that's a valid choice. That's okay. But before you go there, ask yourself two questions. Is answering this going to help me sell books? And is this the right platform for me to express my political leanings? No one is saying that you can't express yourself. I mean, I really want to be clear on that. No one is saying you can't take a stand on things that you care about and that you're passionate about. I believe in that deeply. But when you control the message, you get to control the time and place you speak on said topic. And if it's not this interview, I want you to pivot back to home base. All right? Like I said, I was talking about St. Louis musicians, and instead, my quote was about the event itself. It's an information overload. None of the musicians I was promoting got any promotion from me in my clip on MTV's The Week in Rock. So I want you to think about that before you let an interview become something that may not be what you wanted it to be. So here's a possible answer that we could have perhaps used instead. We could have said something like, book banning always concerns me, especially as I write strong, sexy heroes and heroines for savvy adult readers who want contemporary small-town escapes where satisfaction and happily ever afters are guaranteed. My latest book is about. So as we take a look at this, I want you to sort of think about it, that I have done what I call the pivot. I have answered their question, but I've also brought it back to my home base. And while I've answered said question, I've also given a vague enough answer that it concerns me, but I haven't been specific. And instead, I've redirected it back to my book. And if they come back again to expand, you just repeat, go back to your home base in a different fashion and do a pivot as many times as it takes until they move on in the direction that you want the interviewer to go, because you are not giving them what they're hoping to find. And that is what I mean also by you controlling things, and that is very, very important. All right, so continuing, what about when you are pressured? Because reporters will pressure you. So Chris Cuban advises, always tell your story and do not exaggerate or lie. If you need additional time to compose your message, always ask for it. Funnel your comments back to home base. So you could say something like, example, here's what I would say. That's a really interesting question. I need to think about that further, giving it the same thought as I do when I write strong, sexy heroes and heroines, ... You get the idea. I'm going to pivot it back to my home base. Now, if I want to come back to that question later and answer it, I have the opportunity to bring that back up by saying, earlier you asked me a question and I didn't yet have an answer for you. I'd like to answer that now. And again, that shows that you are in control of this interview. All right, so we talked a little bit about this idea about gotchas. And we want to avoid this idea of gotchas by going home. All right? Let's say you're in an interview for your latest book. The reporter asks, how do you feel about the way women were depicted in romance novels in the 70s? Or do you believe that scene where Daphne or the Duke in the first Netflix Bridgerton was raped? Or that Christian Grey is a stalker? Or what do you think of the President of the United States? Or whatever it is that they come up with. And again, these are gotchas because whatever you say might offend a certain group of people. Again, if you're the type that doesn't mind offending a certain group of people, you can go for it if you want. But the point is that, again, what was your objective going into this interview? So thinking of those things, I might not want to answer either of these two questions, but yet they've been asked of me and I'm going to need to answer them. So maybe I say something like, you know, I was in elementary school in the 1970s, but currently I write strong, sexy heroes and heroines for savvy adult readers who want contemporary small-town escapes where satisfaction and happily ever afters are guaranteed. My latest book is about... You see what I did there, correct? I answered their question, but then I pivoted it and redirected it right back to my home base message. Same here. I'm not Julia Quinn or Shondaland, but that scene was certainly discussed, wasn't it? I'm happy to be here with you discussing my latest contemporary novel, showcasing strong, sexy heroes and heroines who fall in love, written for savvy readers who want small-town escapes where satisfaction and happily ever afters are guaranteed. And then I just stopped talking because I am done answering. And I've answered again the question, but I have not given them a chance to go down a segue or a different path that I did not want to go. So this is difficult. It takes a little bit of practice, but this is where your home base really, really matters. Because when you know what your home base is, you're able to redirect back that direction. And then the reporter will pick up the thread from there. So let's take a few minutes to do some thoughts on social media. All right, because these are very, very necessary. All right. And I know this slide has a lot of text on it, but social media is wonderful and affirming. It's also a cesspool. It can be dangerous, especially when there's a huge outcry of authors of all genres to jump on a cause and take a stand. And there's also a real risk for being canceled if you do take a stand and suddenly the social media feeds turn on you. And that is a nightmare situation. And again, your social media posts should come from your comfort level and your home base. Ask yourself before you post, is this going to help you sell books? Do you care if it doesn't? Do you need to involve yourself in this cause? I mean, if the answer is yes, that's okay. Are you called to do so? There are people who are. What is your goal for doing so? I think that that's important that when you think about, if I'm going to wade into this social media quagmire, what is your reason for doing so? And what are the risks? And are you prepared for those? So these are questions I can't answer for you. Again, I'm not telling you not to post. I'm not telling you that you shouldn't wade into a quagmire. I'm not telling you not to speak your truth on a topic that you are extremely passionate about. But what I do want you to do before you post is I want you to do the same thing that's taught in schools. Think before you post. Many people, because social media is so easy and feels so anonymous, and you'll be like, well, I only have 125 followers on Threads, for instance, but you will post something and it will be picked up and now everyone has seen it. And you didn't necessarily understand the ramifications. And now it's gotten bad. And sometimes it can be good. I posted a tweet on Artemis 2 saying Gen X gave a Big sigh of relief. That's what you heard at 7:07:27, and over 4,300 people saw that post. And I only have 200 followers on Threads because I'm very rarely on that. So again, that was a real positive experience with over 500 people liking it and a lot of people commenting. But at the same time, social media can easily turn into a very negative experience. So I just want you to really think about what you post, because even if you delete it, there is going to be a screenshot of it somewhere. So again, this is where your home-based messaging comes into play. Is your home-based messaging supports your brand. And if what you're about to post contradicts your home base or contradicts your brand, then you might want to think about that twice before you click submit. And I do have just one final reminder for you as I wrap up here. Always take it back to home. That's the whole system that I have given you and the whole trick today in one sentence. Build your home base. Support it with positive points. Proof positives and distinguishing points. And when the conversation drifts, or when someone tries to pull you off course in an interview or in a podcast or even in social media, bring it back. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you if you've made it all the way here to the end. If you want to reach out, you can get me through my website, micheledunaway.com. And have a wonderful day and good luck.
Here at NINC, we hope Michele's presentation helps you feel better prepared to get your message across effectively in any interview. We'll be back very soon with another video. Meanwhile, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps more writers find this brand new channel. Thank you so much, and have a great day.